Welcome, everybody. Welcome to episode number 105 of Fraternity Foodie. I'm your host, Mike Eilon, CEO of Greek University. We call these episodes Fraternity Foodie because there is nothing like great food to bring people together. Buckle up because we have with us my good friend, Lindsay Boccardo. She is a global top-rated virtual presenter, keynote speaker, and host of the YouTube show, The Porch. She is fascinated by generations in the workplace. As a nationally recognized millennial, expert groups from across the country lean on Lindsay to help their teams work better together. With 4 generations of employees in the workforce right now, leaders are looking for new ways to help their organization stand out, recruit, retain, and engage the talent on their teams. That's where Lindsay comes in. She speaks to groups large and small, coaches their top talent, and provides real actionable solutions for creating success in a multi-generational workplace. Welcome to the show, Lindsay.
Thanks, Mike. I'm so lucky to be here. I'm glad we're getting to do this together.
I know, this is so great. You know, the pandemic has certainly had its share of challenges for speakers like you and I. But, you know, the really nice thing about all of this is that I've gotten to know my speaker friends quite a bit better during this time, because now we have an opportunity to sit down and just catch up, have a great conversation. And, you know, ordinarily this time of year, we'd probably just be like all over the country, you know, just
hustling.
it. And we just don't have time to sit down and just catch up for a half hour.
That's right. That's right. It's definitely a different world. Usually I'd be catching you at a conference or we'd be opposite coasts. So I love that we get to actually pause for a minute and chat.
Yeah, just slow down a little bit. So I want to make sure that my audience knows everything about you, because I think your story is just so cool. And so let's go back to the undergrad days. You decided on Syracuse University for your undergraduate experience with a degree in psychology and public communication. Now, I am a New York guy. I was born in New York City, in Manhattan, so I dig it. But why Syracuse?
Yeah, well, I grew up in Rochester, New York. So I grew up down the street, and Syracuse was kind of, the place that people would want to go. And it was, kind of a coveted university up in upstate New York. And so people would talk about it, and they have a huge sports presence. Obviously, the first year I was there, we had Carmelo Anthony. We won NBA, well, not the NBA. What am I talking about? This was, we won the championship, the national championship in college, the NCAA. There it is.
NCAA, yeah.
And that was crazy. That was kind of a scary and exciting time at Syracuse. But I love that it was a big sports school. I love the atmosphere. I really wanted to study psychology, and they have a great public communications school, Newhouse, which I was excited to get to learn from and be a part of. And so, a lot of people too, I think we step on a campus and you kind of know, don't you? You kind of know within a couple minutes, is this my vibe? Is this going to work? And as soon as I stepped on the campus, it's gorgeous. I was in. I didn't know at the time how much it snowed at Syracuse. So I learned how to trudge through 4 feet of snow regularly.
See, you're talking to a guy who went to school at the University of Buffalo, okay? So I know something about snow in the wintertime.
Yeah.
That's so cool that you're up at Syracuse. I think that's awesome. And being there when Carmelo Anthony was playing basketball, are you kidding me? That's like a dream. Your timing was impeccable.
Yeah. It was wild. It was a wild time, and especially just to see him casually around campus in the student union. He's just a student at that point. We all knew he was going to go to the NBA eventually, but it was wild to see in 1 year how much his life changed.
Totally. And so what's really cool about you is you're actually a drummer. Your band played at a cafeteria on a college campus. You played at a dingy nightclub on top of a pool table. You played at a prison chapel at 8 a.m. in the morning. Anywhere you can find a place to plug your amps in, let's be honest. And you had a great mission. You wanted to change the world through great music and authentic storytelling, which I think is fantastic. So I'm wondering what happened. Why couldn't you keep the band together?
I know. Well, it sounds like the dream, doesn't it? This is, especially coming out of college, it was insane to tell my parents, hey, I'm going to take my degree and go hit things with sticks for a living. And after I got over that hump and we went and toured, you'd think if you have all these pieces in place, we had good humans, we had an awesome mission, we were good musicians together, we practiced a ton, that would be enough. But there's this whole other layer to being in a band, to being on any team. And I think a lot of it has to do with how each individual manages their emotions, how self-aware each person is, the difference between being happy and excited, but versus deeply engaged and focused on what you're trying to do. And I see that a lot in the corporate world too. We want employees to be happy, but we really want them to be engaged and connected to what they're doing and to take responsibility for their part. And so, although on paper, everything was great, there was a lot of emotional challenges in our band, which is common. I know a lot of bands don't make it. There's not a lot of U2s out there. And we had to process that in several different environments while you're on the road. So you don't really get to pause and say, let's really talk about what's going on. How are you feeling? It's more like, oh, you feel horrible? Well, we have to start a show. So here we go. And we're going to, and we just didn't have that space or the tools. We were all really young to understand how to listen to each other, to be able to really take into consideration other people's experiences. And the road is a rough lifestyle. It's one of those things where unless you're Taylor Swift and you've got your bus with your cats coming with you, it's not like that. You're sleeping in a sleeping bag on the floor. You're in kind of junky hotels with cigarette burns in the sheets. It's not what you think. And so all of that combined, the stress of touring and just our emotional health as a band, I would say, made it really difficult to survive. And as a leader too, I was put in a leadership spot, which I think happens to a lot of us, really because I was loud. I was a strong communicator. I was passionate. And so, of course, well, let's have Lindsay lead the band. There's a lot of leadership skills that come with leading people through their creativity and their art that I did not have. And so that was a big part too, that made it hard for everybody, including me, to lead other people. And so I learned a lot through that experience. It actually shaped my next step into the coaching world, because I realized there are some invisible forces or levers at play inside of teams that I'm not tuning into yet, that I need to really understand more. And I can't be a bull in a china shop forever. That doesn't work. And I had to learn the hard way.
Yeah. That's a good learning experience. Yeah, listen, we all had to learn the hard way. I've made a lot of mistakes too, and you learn from it and you get better, in terms of putting together teams and managing all those dynamics. So I don't think any of us are necessarily born with it. It's just, we work at it and we work at it and we learn and we test and we do all these things. We read and eventually we get better at it over time. That's all.
Well said. Well said. That's very true.
Yeah.
No one is born, even if you have a big personality or you come across confident, that doesn't mean that you naturally have leadership skills.
Right.
Very true.
So, well, you're certainly rocking it on stages as a speaker right now. And I have to tell you, I am so proud of you. I still remember our phone call years ago. You were looking to figure out how to make it on stages in the college market. And after 45 minutes of just laying out the landscape, you took the information and you just ran with it. And now, I open up these books for all these various conferences that I'm attending. And I'm like, oh yeah, sure. Here you go. Lindsay is the keynote speaker. Of course she is. So you're doing it. You're doing it in the biggest conferences in the business. So what has that ride been like for you the last few years?
Yeah, well, first I gotta say, really thank you, Mike, because those 40 minutes did transform my trajectory. And I think sometimes, we think we've got to make it alone. And I know we had a mutual friend kind of connect us. And I thought, I don't want to bug Mike. I don't know how this is going to go. And you were so kind to me and so gracious. And especially in a sense, somebody could say aren't you two trying to get on the same stage and you're there trying to help me, which is just says a lot about your character and your leadership and your ability to open the door for other people. So I took what you taught me and I had a team that I was building, and, getting into that space, speaking to college students is very different than speaking to companies. And I really did need your input and your thought around it. And I've learned that just keeping my mouth shut and listening and then doing what people that are more experienced do, that actually works. That actually works really well. How do I do this? Give me 3 steps. All right, I'm gonna do it. See you later. And that's really, I would say that's how I would sum up our conversation. So it works, and I just think that says a lot about you as a person, that you're willing to share that. And it's been a wild ride. It has been. I think one of the biggest things that speakers feel the pressure to do, that I feel the pressure to do, is continue to evolve and grow. And some days that's really fun and exciting. And you know this, sometimes you get off stage and you're like, yeah. And then other days you're like, that I want to go crawl in a hole. I don't know if I like it. And then you watch a video and it's like, nobody else would notice, but you and I notice.
Sure.
And so I think that's been a big piece, is like finding the tension of wanting to be excellent and do my very best and still enjoy myself and have fun and be lighthearted about it and not take myself too seriously. So it's been an exciting adventure. Truly, I feel like I get to live out what I'm made to do every day, which is really a privileged place to be. I feel really lucky to be able to do that. And it's risky too. It's not always easy. And we were talking about, 2020, we had to really switch up the way that we do everything.
Right.
And that's just continued character development for me. And I appreciate it in a weird way. I appreciate that we've had to continue to flex and grow.
I love it. Well, listen, first off, let me tell you, it's my pleasure to help others. I think none of us get to the point where we're at by ourselves. I think we're all depending on other people and other experts to help us to kind of illuminate a path for us, so that way we know where to go. For me, the same thing is true. I mean, I depended on guys like Dave Westall and Pete Smith-Heisler and some other giants in the industry to kind of show me the way. And so I don't think any of this is possible with Greek University without others helping me along the way to show me how it's done and to paint a picture for me. Because if you've never done it before, how are you supposed to know what the path is? I mean, it's just, you're figuring things out in the dark. And so I've had to depend on experts along the way. And I agree with you. I think it's a great strategy. I think for anybody out there listening that is trying to find their way in a new industry, in a new career, the best advice that either Lindsay or I can give you is to interview somebody who's already there doing it and just listen to them, listen to what they have to tell you, and they will show you. There are so many good people out there that just want to help. I just want to help other people be successful, because for me, that's really what it's about. Like, if you really understand what it is that I'm trying to do, I'm trying to get other people to be successful and just to pay it forward. I feel extraordinarily blessed and I'm humbled by the success. But for me, the ultimate reward is seeing my students, seeing my friends, seeing other speakers go out there and just kill it on stage and go, I remember when, right? I remember the conversation. And that to me is the ultimate reward.
Yeah, it is. I mean, you think about those sweet moments that you never forget. We always talk about, someday this day will be the good old days. And we'll look back and think, remember when we, lived in our house for a year, and we all have these moments, these moments where we realize that was tough at the time. And now it's a highlight for me. And now I always go back and point to that. And, when we first talked, I was a baby speaker in the college world. I maybe had one talk that I had done a few times, or I'd been to a couple headquarters, but it's probably one of the richest parts of my life, is to be able to see how people have impacted me and how I get to impact other people. Totally. I'm with you on that.
Yeah, that's the best part, is just hearing how the students take the information that you give them and how they implement that in their chapter, in their council, in their careers. And then they'll find us, a year or two later out on the circuit and be like, I remember what you told me. And they'll literally repeat back to me word for word what I said up on stage. And I'm like, I can't even remember what I said on stage yesterday. And you're telling me what I said on stage a year ago? It's just so
exactly funny. It's wild.
It's just wild. So all right, so let's talk about high achiever land, right? So we work hard, we don't say no to anything, and then we wake up each day with this huge weight on our shoulders. And I think it's even worse now during the pandemic, because everything just kind of blends together, including the evenings and the weekends. And it's just like, I feel like I'm working 7 days a week with no break. So how do we get out of this endless doing more cycle?
Yeah, you're right that this year, all of that was elevated even more. And it's no secret that students that are in fraternity sorority life are high achievers. They're there to grow as leaders. They're there to grow as influencers. And I find that talking about high achiever land with them brings them a ton of relief. And part of what we talk about is this, just from a high level, from a theoretical level, the way that they view success truly has to flip on its head. So think about with me, like middle school, high school, even in college, we tend to tell students, hey, if you can be involved, be in student government, be on the sports team. Don't just be on the sports team, be the captain. You have to get straight A's in every class in high school. You've got to get straight A's. Whether or not you're good at chemistry, you better get an A. Whether or not you're good in math, you better get an A. And so there's this pressure to, you don't even get a chance to really discover what you're best at. You just have to be good at everything. And then if we look into the professional world and the real world, we see that the people that make the most money are actually specialists. Those that get super narrow, don't try to be a jack of all trades, but really try to be awesome at one thing. And in our market today, that's where your success lies, and that's where your focus lies too. And so you can imagine for most college students, as you're thinking about, all right, I've got a year left of school, that I'm going into the real world or professional life, we have to start switching that script and recognize that success isn't about being busy. Success is a measure of, am I living up to who I want to be? Am I focused enough that I can see myself growing in certain areas? And I think of a career as simply a commitment to grow in a direction that you love. It's really that simple. And you get that option if you go, to college and you've done your work. And so I really try to start with this idea of, what is your version of success? If it is to be busy, that makes sense to me because of how you were raised and what you were taught in high school. Mm-hmm. In the real world, we've got to change our version of success to be, I am a narrow laser focused on growing in these two ways. I'm going to be the best at X, Y, Z. And so first, it's that switch of the mindset that we talk a lot about. And then we also spend time talking about the fear and the shame we have when we say no. And sometimes it's fear of rejection. Sometimes the shame is, I'm a lazy, bad person because I don't want to do it all. And those are judgments that if we can release and just be more accurate with ourselves, we see we really can't be everywhere. And a big piece of what we end up doing is just practicing how to say no to commitments that keep coming, because the superstars will always be asked to do more. That's how it works. Mm-hmm. And so training college students, how do I actually say, I'm not the person for this, so-and-so would be a better fit, my calendar's slammed, I'm not gonna be able to be available for that. How do we do that in a way where we don't fear breaking social connection, where we don't fear ruining friendships or starting issues that don't need to be there, drama that doesn't need to be there? That's really what High Achiever Land is about.
I love it. That's fantastic. Last night I was at AFA virtual conference, and I was leading a session on Gen Z, and it's called Driven, which I really, believe fits Gen Z very well. And, Gen Z, what they care about most is careers. Okay. Mm-hmm. For them, their career is so, so, so important. And there's so many students that are listening right now, and they are thinking about designing a career path. And, but we have to be realistic, and we have to understand that the pandemic has hit the job market really hard. So what are some specific action items that you can take to find your dream job in this market?
Yeah. Well, there's a few things, because you bring up a good point. We study generations, and you're exactly right. Gen Zs care about their career development. If they go to college, they're thinking, how does this turn into a career? I need to see direct line. Mm-hmm. And that's one of the reasons, even in this last year, we launched Career House, which is something that fraternities and sororities get involved with us. And we go through every step you need to design your career path. So we're starting that with Sigma Kappa in January. So Sigma Kappa members can come and take that career path course. And the cool thing is that they actually have a network of sisters who have gone before them. And we're going to teach them how to reach out to them. You want to work at Google? You have 3 sisters that work at Google right now. We can reach out to them and you'll get in the door pretty easily. So really, I think what's cool is that we happen to be designing this tool behind the scenes. The pandemic hit, and we see that Gen Zs really want career development, and it's something that sororities and fraternities can bring to their members that make a difference. And the piece that I kind of already alluded to is this idea of networking. If there's one thing that you do during the pandemic, it's to network. And that means really get clear on who you are and what you're looking for. so that the people around you can help you. And I think networking gets a bad name because it's like, what do you want me to do? You want to just call people and talk to them about things? And what we're really saying is, if you want to work at Google in a certain department, we're going to start telling your brothers and sisters that. We're going to start telling your family and friends that, so that you can get connected to the right people. We know that your resume is just a one-dimensional. It's just there to legally actually tell the world that I did actually accomplish these things. That's all. It's not the thing that people go, oh my gosh, Mike, this is amazing. You're hired. That's not how it works. It goes, hey, I know a guy. You should talk to Mike. We should bring Mike in and see if he's interested. That's how people get jobs. And 80% of jobs are unlisted in the first place. And so if you think about, if you really want to work at Google waiting on their site for a job to come up, you might miss the boat. It's really about getting in and getting to know the people that you could work with in the future. So the one piece I would say is network. And I don't know if you found this, but I wonder, Mike, have you found that people are more open to connect because we're just all sitting here? I found that to be the case on LinkedIn for sure.
Yeah, people are definitely much more willing to connect. There's no question about that. Listen, I'm always about networking. I'm always about. I literally made a post about this on LinkedIn the other day. I said, I understand that the job market is really hard. I just want to help people connect. I have this huge network on LinkedIn, and I have all of these fraternity brothers, all over the country that I've worked with over the years that I have real personal relationships with. And I said, just tell me, this was my post, tell me how I can help you. Tell me how I can introduce you to somebody to move your career forward. Because again, going back to it, that's what makes me feel good. It's not about the money. It's about seeing other people become successful. And that's why I'm such a champion for fraternity and sorority life, because I feel like there is no better leadership experience on a college campus when it's done right. And I feel like the network is so powerful because, you're talking about Sigma Kappa, all these other, fraternities and sororities. I mean, they literally have hundreds of thousands of members that you can get connected with. And if you want to go work for Google, I promise you, I can find that person, but you have to tell me what it is that you want.
You just nailed it. That's exactly right. And I find so often that we're overwhelmed and we don't know how to speak about ourselves and what we want. And so you can have an awesome resource like Mike, but if you don't know what you want to tell him, he can't mind read and figure that out for you.
I can. You have to tell me what you're passionate about, and then I will help you. I really genuinely, and this, I genuinely just want to help people, but you have to, I'm not a mind reader. I can't get into your head. You have to tell me what it is that you want. And I'll put that out there in the universe, here on the podcast as well. If you can paint a very clear picture for me of where you want to go, I will help you. That's really what I'm all about. So I'm glad that we're aligned that way. And you mentioned, your coaching skills before, and you talk about leading with coaching skills. I think today's college students, they want a leader who listens to them and also collaborates with others. So how can we ask open-ended, empowering questions to further our listening skills and then encourage that collaboration with the team? How do we do that?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. And there's a step before it, which is just taking a minute to breathe. Because the piece that I have found to be true is that as much as we want to ask questions and be known as a good listener, we can't do that unless we are in a good spot. And so I started doing this checklist of, am I able to listen right now? Which means, am I in a neutral emotional place? Am I breathing? I'm going to do a body scan and check in with my body and make sure that I'm calm enough to receive whatever this person is going to say. Because sometimes when you ask open-ended, empowering questions, people are going to say things you never imagined. You might not like what they have to say. And the minute that you start to go, well, that's not really how that happened, now we've crushed the safety, the psychological safety of that team. And so as leaders, I think there really is a moral imperative to check in with ourselves before we try to listen and collaborate and make sure that we're taken care of, that we're in a good spot to be able to even do that. There's this concept of listening, and then there's the actual act of doing that well. And so when I think about listening, I think about these 3 different levels that we all kind of bounce between regularly. There's objective listening, subjective listening, and intuitive listening. So sometimes you think about subjective listening is when you're listening, you're kind of waiting to share your part. You're kind of, and we do this sometimes, maybe when we're recruiting, we're like figuring out, is this person a fit? And we're kind of ping ponging back and forth. Objective listening is when we're gathering information. I'm just trying to gather information from everybody. And intuitive listening is when we're really paying attention to the emotion of what somebody's saying. We don't even necessarily, the details don't matter in that moment. We're trying to figure out what's happening to this person emotionally. And as a leader, we want to consciously walk into scenarios and figure out which version of listening am I doing right now? Because that changes the game. If you're jumping on a Zoom and you're collaborating, especially right now, if you have to collaborate over Zoom, make that intention clear. Hey, we're here to brainstorm. And in your mind, you're going, and I'm in a place where I can receive ideas and not judge them and not get too tangled in emotions, but we can do this together. So it's both letting people know what you need from them and then being able to be self-aware enough to know which type of listening that you're in. And the same thing with open-ended empowering questions. You gather way different data from people if you ask them open-ended empowering questions. It could be as easy as, instead of saying, why do we cancel the meeting on Sunday? We can say, I'm curious, what factors led up to this cancellation? You're going to get totally different data because the why questions make people go, oh, I don't know, I didn't mean to, and they get defensive, our ego rises up. But if we can focus on what factors led to this, or what made you process it this way, or just getting out of the why questions, people actually give you better data that's not trying to protect themselves from accusation. And so that's really the core of what it means to listen and ask open-ended empowering questions. I'm sure you do this all the time with your team, Mike, where you realize, okay, I've got to shift gears here and do things differently so that we can collaborate.
100%, 100%. I mean, when I'm a real New Yorker, and I remember when I came to Tennessee for the job with the fraternity and working for the headquarters, and I remember working with the team of people at our headquarters, and I had to adjust because I feel like New Yorkers are just very direct. That's just a part of our culture. And then in Tennessee,
Yep.
It's like, that puts people a little bit, at some unease. They're uncomfortable when you're that direct. And so I recognize literally the first week that I'm like, oh my God, I have to ask these questions in a different way, because if I'm direct like this, I'm going to totally turn them off and I'm not going to be able to get where I need to go. So I had to change the way that I ask questions just from a regional standpoint.
That makes it, maybe this is why we get along so well, because we're both New Yorkers. So but that makes a lot of sense. And you're right. When I moved to the Midwest, everybody was like, can you take it down about 11 notches?
Right.
You have an opinion about everything. I'm like, yeah, don't you? I mean, what? It's very true. It's very true that we have to pivot.
Yeah, I really had to pivot. All right, so you're talking about building your life team. I know you're building your life team right now. You got some great support around you. I believe in the same thing because I'm building it with the crew at Greek University. So Tell us, why are humans wired for connection on these teams, and what happens when we don't get it?
Yeah, well, humans, if we look at humans inside of the animal kingdom, and we compare them to other creatures, you would see really quickly that humans are highly social, highly pack creatures. That is how we are made. Our language is evolved significantly. We can't always know what other animals are thinking, but we know that compared to others, we want to be in packs. We want to be connected. We are socially bound to each other. It's actually part of how we regulate our nervous systems, is that we get around other people that help calm us down, or obviously stress people can stress us out too, but we really are made to be connected, and we shrivel. Relationships for humans is what sunlight is for plants.
Wow. Mm-hmm.
A plant is not going to grow in a garage. It has to get out. We've got to bask. We've got to soak in. We've got to get deep connection or we shrivel. We know that all the way through development psychology, from babies that are in orphanages that don't get enough just skin time and touch time that fail to thrive. We know that from our prison system. I used to do work inside of prisons, and the number one thing prisoners hated was solitary confinement. And there's been laws that have tried to pass that solitary confinement is inhumane because you're taking a social creature and isolating them. And so we see that. I even had a psychologist on my show, The Porch, this last week, and we were talking about how do we move through our uncomfortable feelings in 2020. And at the end, I said, what's one piece of advice you give to everybody? And honestly, Mike, I thought she was going to say journal, or like, this is a good time to meditate. Nope. She said, get connected. We are wildly underestimating the importance of being connected to each other. And for, somebody who's been practicing as a therapist for 25 years, all of us on the show were like, okay, she was so certain that that was the piece that we are missing. And that was part of why we're all suffering, is because we're so socially disconnected right now. Mm-hmm. And so I see that across every time I look at humans from different angles. That element of us, this social part of us, is huge. So your life team is about each one of us consciously deciding, where do I want to go in life and who do I need around me? We know the old phrase from Jim Rohn, we're the average of the 5 people we spend the most time with. We've all heard that from Jim Rohn. And this is an example of that. The best way to learn is through osmosis. It's actually through modeling and apprenticeship. And so having people around you that are a few steps down the road in every way, professionally, relationally, emotionally, so that you can glean off of them and learn from them, be influenced by them, that's huge.
Got it. That's beautifully said. So the spring semester here in 2021 is going to bring, I'm sure, more uncertainty for our undergraduate students. So I'm wondering, how can students work with each other when they're probably still going to be fearful of getting sick? Maybe they're angry that they're not getting the college experience that they want right now. And maybe they're hurt because the leaders themselves are stressed out. So, how can we work with each other in this environment?
Yeah, I think the first step is to acknowledge that we are in a time of grief and anxiety like never before. And usually about 20% of the adult population in the United States is dealing with a mental health crisis. So usually it's 1 out of 5. Right now, we all have been pushed to our very edges. So I think going into the spring semester, the first thing would be to adjust expectations. I wish, and I know you think this too, Mike, I wish that things could just go back to normal.
Sure.
Right? And the more that we hear news about how we're going to end the pandemic, we also know it's going to take time. And we also know that when you've gone through such a tumultuous year, humans also don't snap back quickly. Mm-hmm. We don't just say, oh, we're back to normal environment. Woo, our whole body can readjust. We're good to go. So I really want to emphasize, adjust expectations, be realistic with what's possible, and treat each other gently through this process, because everyone is suffering in ways that we don't know and we're not always aware of. And so, especially with this idea about, the fear of getting sick, which we all wrestle with, mm-hmm. I think just knowing what are my personal boundaries, how will I take care of myself and stay connected, how much can I give, making sure you're aware of your own energy and emotional bucket, and then giving extra grace and patience, lowering our expectations of each other. It's very rare that I say that, but lower our expectations, knowing that it's just going to be a little wonky. We're going to have to navigate it together.
That's right.
What do you think about that? What would you say?
Yeah, I agree. I think, I think we have to be realistic. We have to, find ways to engage with each other in these virtual environments, and to attract new students into our organizations in this virtual environment. I think that this pandemic gives us a unique opportunity for fraternity and sorority leaders to reimagine what their organizations look like and how they operate, and stay a little bit more true to the values and the origins of the organization, and start to, build real relationships in order to grow their organizations versus the event, which we can't have the event. We can't have, a huge rager, on campus right now. And
Yeah,
so
that's
that
right.
to me is a good thing because that makes us focus more on what's important. And what's important is the relationship. It's not the event. They didn't join your organization because of the event. They joined your organization because of the relationship they had with one of the people in your organization. And that is what I want people to remember from this time.
Well said. Well said. That's really good.
That's what I want people to remember. So anyway, I want to talk about your show because I hope that all of our listeners go and check out your YouTube show, The Porch, and you interview thought leaders and CEOs on various topics on your show. So I'm wondering, what have you learned through this process of doing all these interviews with these thought leaders and CEOs?
Yeah, something that has become a firmer and firmer conviction for me is that I really do think there is a moral obligation. If you're leading other people, you have a moral obligation to continue to grow and heal and create safe places for other people. And that's something I've learned from these interviews from people that are way down the road from me who, have made huge worldwide impact. They're telling me, not directly, but through their behavior and how they treat me and other people, that growth is key. And so that's something I've learned that I realize is really important to me, to continue to talk about our own emotional and personal health when we're leading other people. I think the other thing I've learned is to ask. When we're talking about building a life team, when we're talking about, getting people to mentor you, I have been blown away. Some of the people that I've asked to be on my show, I'm thinking, there is no way. This is a personal hero of mine. This is not somebody who's going to come on.
Yeah.
Gee, Linz, thanks for asking. I'd love to come on. And then I have the moment of, oh my gosh, now I have to interview them. Now I got to be cool. Great. What have I done? But I think those two things that I've learned is to continue to grow personally, to get healthier, more grounded, to create safe space for other people, and to not be afraid to ask someone that you admire for a favor.
Yeah,
Just
totally
ask.
agree.
You know what's going to happen.
Right. Yeah, I totally agree. It's so funny that you mentioned that experience, because next Thursday, I'm not going to say who this guest is going to be, but next Thursday is going to be the biggest guest that I've ever had on Fraternity Foodie in terms of just national, attention, somebody that everybody knows. And so, yeah, I'm just kind of blown away. I'm like, I don't even know what to ask this person. I'm like, I'm just blessed that they said yes. But if you don't ask, you will never have that opportunity ever.
Exactly. Now you get to spend this weekend thinking, what do I want to say?
Oh
What
my
do I want to
God.
say? I can't wait to tune in and see who it is because,
I'm just
that's
so,
a great, everybody else can be just as excited as you. We
I
just are
know, but
relieved that we don't
I'm
have to
just so
run the interview.
nervous about the whole experience. It's just like I don't even know what to say. I'm like, it's one of the very few times that I'm going to be without anything to say, and I'm going to be like, I don't even know what to ask you.
I love it.
It's going to be a lot of fun. It's going to be a lot of fun. All right, so listen, you know that I love good food. We've been out
Yeah.
to some restaurants in Indianapolis. I'm curious, what's your favorite restaurant these days in Indianapolis, and what do you like to order?
Well, I have 3, and you and I have already eaten at one.
Yes.
Napoli's.
Woohoo!
Napoli's, yes. Wood-fired pizza is the best. Martha Hoover is the CEO of a whole universe of restaurants here in Indianapolis that are here for sustainability. The food quality is great. The employees are treated really well. And so for me, I'm kind of shifting, and I wonder if we're all kind of making this mental shift of, my dollar really does change the atmosphere that I live in. Whoever I spend money on, whoever I give money to, really endorses their behavior. And so when I think about restaurants that I want to eat at, I've gotten a lot more careful, I guess, about where I spend my money. And so I always am at one of Martha Hoover's establishments. She's a CEO that has social justice on the front of her mind and excellent food. And I think she, just as a human, I get to speak with her regularly. I'm part of her organization. I kind of consult with the Highachievers universe. And so I just really love to support and be a part of companies that I believe in that are changing the world. And so anything from her, obviously, a good old pepperoni pizza from Napoli's Pizzeria is incredible. They have a little restaurant called Petite Choux that's in Broad Ripple. You go up to Broad Ripple sometimes, right, Mike?
Sometimes. Yeah.
Yeah. So they've got this awesome patio, obviously open air, so you can, be there, be safe, socially distanced, and they've got great dishes. They're French inspired cuisine. It's awesome. And then Patachou is her brunch place, which is fantastic. And we've all been there at some point and gotten a 3-egg omelet and just eaten it up. So I would say their blueberry jam on gluten-free toast just does it for me. It's like, so I feel like as I get older, I'm like excited about jams. I don't know. What are you going to do?
No, I'm the same way. Like, I remember going to a restaurant, having breakfast out in California after a speaking presentation there. And I remember I had some apricot jam that just absolutely blew my world. And I said to my waitress, I said, this is homemade, right? She said, yeah, we make it fresh here. And I said, this is fantastic. I said, but I'm heading on a plane and I want my family to try your jam. So I said, how can I transport your jam in big quantity on a plane so I can bring it home to my kids? And she said, well, just go across the street. There's a convenience store there. Buy like one of these, Tupperware, whatever containers. And she said, I'll fill it up with jam for you so you can bring it back. And she did. And of course, I gave her a gigantic tip. And I said, thank you. I said, I don't know why I'm so excited about your jam, but it's really delicious.
You get older, the jams matter. We're having a little
I guess so. See, this is why you're the best Fraternity Foodie guest, because you give so much thought into the restaurants and what their missions are, and you tell me about their CEO and their chef. I mean, you've done so much research, and I'm like, oh my God, like I would love to go out to have a meal with you again, because it's always a learning experience. It's not just about the food, it's about the mission of the organization that you're there to support. And I don't know many people that view dining the same way that you look at it.
Yeah, I feel really strongly about that, especially for, the restaurant industry is getting crushed right now, and so I really do think about which ones do we want to see in 2021. And I think, the more that we choose, it feels really good and really I think about it as investing. Am I enjoying my pizza? Yeah, but I'm also investing in the quality of life of, the servers and the people that work hard to make good food. So yeah, we got to do that again. We will have to do that again next time you're up here.
Absolutely. I am definitely down for that. All right. So if any of the students listening or the college administrators are watching right now, let's say they want to book you to speak virtually, whatever. So where should they go for more information and to connect with you?
Yeah. The easiest place is just my website, which is my name. So that's pretty easy, lindsayboccardo.com. You're going to see the virtual talks we offer. We're about to unroll. We're about to unleash the next season of talks based on, what we've heard from all of our clients this last year. So you can go to my website, check that out. You can always just message me on any social media platform, even TikTok. If you want to find me on TikTok, that's great. And I would definitely want to stay connected. And I know that what I love getting to do with you, Mike, is to talk about what really matters to us. And you're such a genuine, good human. And I think it's such an honor to be on your show and to continue to point people to everything you're doing with Greek University, to just get to be in your world and watch you continue to create goodness around you. It's very inspiring. So thank you for letting me be a part of this show. And I'm happy to serve anybody that comes my way in whatever way makes the most sense. So thank you for having me.
Of course, Lindsay, it's a pleasure. I'm just happy to introduce you to our audience, because I think you can serve them and serve them really well. I know that they are in expert hands when they are in your hands. And those are the types of people that I'm around all day long. It's people who I know are going to be able to do right by all the people in my universe. And you're one of those people. So I'm super happy to document this and have this time with you. I think it's been great. Your website, let me spell it for the audience. It's LINDSAYBOCCARDO.com. Definitely go and check that out. Lindsay is just fantastic. And I know she's going to do a great job in helping you. So this has been Absolutely wonderful. I can't wait to get up to Indianapolis so we can have another meal together. And until then, please stay safe and continue doing what you're doing. Just know that I am so proud of you. It makes me really happy to see how, all of your success. I'm just like beaming with happiness. So
Thank
continue doing the
you.
great work.
Thank you. Thanks for being a part of my life team, Mike.
Of course, of course. And so for all of our listeners, if you like this, please like it and share it with other students. That's super important that we get Lindsay's words out to the masses. And we hope to see you on another episode of Fraternity Foodie. Bye for now.
Bye.